Okay, so I wanted to make a quick video about Rory Gallagher, and my apologies to you. My pronunciation of names and and record labels in some cases is horrible. But I want to talk about Rory Gallagher, and I want to talk about him in the context of a video I made recently where I was describing, the music that came out of the jazz age. And the jazz age, in some ways, parts of the jazz age, was an extension of classical music, but with just a bit more um, jazz to it. I don't know. But anyway, I was talking about the jazz age and how the 20th century was kind of split up, and there was and I was talking about how the second half of the 20th century was more about well, it all came from folk music, which is blues and country and bluegrass and uh, you know the folk music of like the Woody Guthries and stuff like that, and how everything changed and how that music took over, and there was a simplification of popular music in the form of rock and roll and everything that came after it. So I don't need to say that again. But the funny thing is, I was talking about like the two things that started me off on that journey were listening to Duke Ellington one evening, but the other thing was the thought somehow on my phone, Rory Gallagher had shown up on my phone, and the funny thing is, I didn't really get into Rory's music. But I knew, I thought that Eric Faulkner was a fan, and I still haven't actually dug into that because, you know, after the Duke Ellington and after that video that I made, really I've been spending a lot of my time going back over a lot of videos of Rory, which we're so fortunate to have on YouTube, a lot of live recordings in particular. And the thing I wanted to say about Rory is that I do believe that in that, second chapter, let's call it, of the 20th century of music, I do believe that Rory is one of those people that survives and does well. Rory was a virtuoso, and he was more than that. I believe that he was the kind of person that you could put any music in front of him and he could play it. And I don't even know if he read sheet music, but you could just play it then, and then or describe it, and he could play it. He could play anything. Um, but beyond that, he had an ability to play in. It seems like just about any mode by ear, and he had the ability to write songs, and he had the ability to improvise on the highest level. Um, and I think that for him, there's this thing that happens with some people when they're young. And I don't want to discourage people because you can do this through a lot of work as well, right? But there is this thing for some people when they're young. I'm going to describe it in the way that I think this is Glenn Gould that I'm describing. So I think Glenn, no, he was a famous pianist from Canada, okay? I do believe that when Glenn was young, he was not the person in his family that was getting piano lessons. And I'm not sure who it was that was getting the piano lessons. But whenever they hit the wrong key, he, as a child, would walk over and say no and hit the correct key. And he had this innate ability to understand at a very young age the relationship between a frequency, let's say, and where it sat on the piano. Now, I don't know if this is through the understanding of intervals or if it's perfect pitch. We can go into that to no end. But this is something that a very small percentage of people have at a young age, where they are able to ascertain, what note is being hit or should be hit, um, without going through the process and learning all of their intervals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because, this is when you go to music school, if you go to music college, like a proper college, where you're studying in class, several hours a day, one of the things you're going to go through is interval training, recognizing intervals, reproducing intervals, stuff like that. But there are people at a young age that don't go through that training and they have that ability, right? I'm just going to pause for 1 second and I'll be right back. Okay, so yeah, so that's one part. I don't, like I say, I don't want to discourage people, but there is this innate ability that some people have, right? Um, the other way you get to having that ability is through very, very hard work and practicing all of your intervals and practicing every mode and practicing every scale to the point where you have memorized it and you understand it. And I don't even know how long that takes. I've never been through this, but it's a lot of work. But then on top of that, being able to have that relationship between what you understand with regards to intervals and the instrument that you're playing. I'm just pointing to my guitar here, and being able to understand with your instrument how all those intervals, are laid out. That's a whole other level, right? But what I want to say about Rory is that I believe that he is one of those very, 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 very few individuals who both had, I think, at a young age, an innate ability to understand this, but also had the obsessive work ethic to expand upon it to the point where it was useful. I think there are very, very few people like that in music. And when you think about all of the effort that Rory had to put into his recordings, and if you think about all of the practice that had to go in to understanding, physically how to play, right? But then on top of that, all of the theory around it with all of the different modes and all of the different scales and all of the different types of chords, his knowledge of blues, his knowledge of jazz, it's just a tremendous it's a tremendous amount of expertise. And I think that but the thing I really love about him and his music is that he was constantly giving a full effort, but at the same time not being pretentious about it. It's just incredible, like the amount of respect that I have. And I can't really go on too much more because I'm not an expert, so I can't describe all the things that he did. But I'm telling you, I believe he is one of those people that truly understood music on a level that most people are going to have to work for decades to get to. And you can get there, right? You can get there. I'm not going to get there. Uh, but you can get there. And the thing I wanted to say about that is that at the same time, we treat musicians like dirt. We can all read the news these days about how little money songwriters and musicians are getting off of Spotify and all the other stuff. It's an absolute joke. I hold them in very high esteem in comparison to the pencil-necked geeks that are the CEOs that are running companies. They are nothings. They're nobodies. I don't care. I don't care if they get $200 million worth of stocks every year. And I know some of them work hard, and there's definitely a big difference between good CEOs, which I have worked for, and crappy CEOs that I have worked for, because the crappy ones end up destroying the company, right? But they still walk away with, they destroy lives and companies and wealth and whatever, and then they just kind of like bumble their way on, you know. But musicians, what do they do for us when they succeed? They provide a lifetime of enjoyment for us now because their music is recorded and we continue to listen to it. And so I'm sitting here listening to Rory's music. I'm sitting here listening to Jeff Beck's music. They are still providing so much to my life, and yet we treat musicians like garbage and we pay them absolutely nothing. Something has to change because we are not going to have these great artists in the future, because even if they want to do it and even if they're willing to do it, their music is going to be hidden. you know it's going to be hidden underneath whatever Spotify or whoever um, can get 200 million views or streams or whatever, and they're still going to pay those people garbage as well. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to step in because maybe my last video could be considered like insulting to artists of the second part of the 20th century, and I certainly don't mean it that. It's different, but I'm going to put up two videos in the description. One will be a performance, okay, but the other one is an interview if I can find that. But the thing that I really like about the interview is that there's some weak points to the interview, but Rory is generally saying at one point about the blues and what it meant to him is it's that he's like, oh well, the thing is we didn't know about this, and then we found this, and then it's a way of expressing yourself, right? And it was like it just opened up a bunch of things, and that's exactly what I was saying. He's able to communicate on a different level. I said in my last video that how much I appreciate Duke Ellington and how much I appreciate John Coltrane, but that at the same time I listen to the Beatles more because they communicate. Well, that's because their music is based on that kind of thing, right? And that's what the second half of the 20th century was all about. And that's why I don't like when people become pretentious about it. And Rory certainly wasn't pretentious about it at all. And he suffered for his craft on a level that all the great musicians seem to. And we should have respect for him. And we should have respect for musicians. And they should be paid so well for all of the happiness that they bring into our lives. So, yeah, check the description, and I will have a few videos there. Thanks for watching, and listen to Rory's music because it's out of this world. Thanks a lot.